everybody. Thanks for joining Game Trade Media live at PAX Unplugged. I'm Gretchen, and I'm here with Aron from Elzra Games.
Hello, Gretchen.
Hi. So you brought a brand new game for us.
That's correct, Catacombs Cubes.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it's been in development for approximately 2 years now. It took us some time to get all the fantastic artwork finished, and very interested in its innovative gameplay that we're bringing to the marketplace. So we're seeing a number of these games that involve stacking three-dimensional structures, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But many of them are pretty abstract, and we like to think that Catacombs Cubes has a nice, strong theme to go with it as well.
So how does gameplay work?
Okay, so what players are going to be doing is they're going to be drafting these resources, okay? So there's different resources that are included with the game, and as players draft these onto their player board, they're going to have the opportunity to build these buildings here, okay? And the buildings will ultimately get added into the town. When the town grid has been completed, the game ends. Now, we should say here that we are showing the game with the optional playmat, which helps to organize all of the components and also organize the village grid below. So if we take an example tile, let's say take the hospital here, okay? We can see that this is, it has some features on the tile. First of all, it's nice and big, and it shows us how high the structure has to be, and also an isometric perspective of the finished building. Now, people can think of this like a Lego set, okay? So this is just the general plan, but there's multiple ways that we can accomplish building the hospital. So let's try doing it, okay? So if I had, for example, bamboo and stone, I could go like this. So I've got my 3 high here. I could take glass, and I could go like this. So there's our hospital, okay? But I could also build it differently. I could start here. Well, there we go. I could go up here. And then, if I had another one like this, and another one like this. So there's different ways to solve these puzzles. And when you flip the tile over, you will see that the illustration matches what the original blueprint looked like, okay? And then players will take their completed building and they will add it in to the village grid. And there's various effects that are going to take place as they do this, okay? So, for example, when you connect it to a completed building to an existing building, and in this case, we have the town hall here. We'll always start with the town hall building. It's always completed. We have the opportunity to match these connectors, okay? But in this particular case, because there is not a color match, we get to choose which connector reward that we want. So there's some different connector rewards, okay? And so that's the fundamental part of the game that players are competing to build these various structures that are going to come out over the course of the game, okay? Players also have the opportunity to build their own personal house in the city, okay? So during the course of the game, if you've developed by drafting the resources, you have the ability to build this, you can add your own house into the village grid. And again, there's going to be some special effects that result in doing that, okay?
So you're really working with a lot of like geometric awareness to build these shapes using the blocks and being creative.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's very much a spatial awareness style game. Okay, we also can contribute to a palace. Okay, so this is another aspect of the game that we're building a shared palace here. So I'm just randomly placing blocks, but there's 2 palace areas here, and when the palace is complete, it is also added to the village grid according to where the player who completed it would like to place it. So, but the important point about the palace is that normally when you complete a regular building, the resources are recycled back into the quarry. But with the palace, they're not. They're going to stay here, they're going to persist here, and it may not even be that we even finish a palace in a game, we may not even finish both of them, but these resources are going to stay there, and that acts as a mechanism to drain some of the available resources from the game. So the next question is, well, how do we get these resources? And we get them by rolling these dice, okay? So I have these large dice here. I'm going to roll them, and I'm going to organize them by color. And there's some rules around this about how we're going to organize these, but we basically make up these pairs, okay? So you can see here that we have, if we were playing up to a 4-player game in the base game, for example, we have these sets of dice here. With an expansion, the game also supports 5 to 6 players as well. So that's what these extra slots are available for, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so fundamentally on your turn, you have 2 choices. You're either drafting resources or you're going to attempt to build something. You're either going to build onto the palace, you're going to try and build your own personal residence, or you're building one of the village tiles that we've discussed previously, okay? But these here allow you to, these quarry dice allow you to draft those resources, and some of them actually have actions, special actions that you can perform as well. So special one-shot actions. In this particular case, you can contribute an obsidian cube directly to the palace and score points without having to do that on your turn. So you can still draft, and you're in fact making a palace contribution at the same time.
Now, so these are all skills that people think of as very basic skills, but are very necessary skills. What is the age range for this game?
Well, I mean, I think we see with something like a toy like Lego that, you know, kids get into building with wooden blocks really early. So we have to put 14 plus on the box, of course, because of the child safety testing. But the game, of course, is very safe, and you know, we think, you know, kids it can easily scale for them to start even just enjoying playing with the blocks that are in the box, and then you can start adding more of the rules and some of the other sophisticated strategy that comes along with it as they get older. So we think it's a pretty kid-friendly game.
Awesome. And so I'm kind of curious over here. What's this for, this guy?
Well, this is your player board, okay? And this is where you get to keep the resources that you've drafted, okay? And it's actually double-sided, so you can choose which side all players will play on. And on this side of the player board, for example, you can see that you would start with, this particular gentleman would start with a stone resource. And on this side, this is the symmetrical side, all players are going to start with at least one of these coins. So you're getting the coins during the course of the game by making the connections when you add structures to the village grid. Okay? And what coins allow you to do are perform additional actions. And you can perform these actions at the beginning of your turn or the end of your turn. Okay? So these allow you to manipulate where the blocks are going to go. So for example, this the hammer action, this is going to allow me to actually chip off, if I had, say, the clay resource, I could chip it off using the hammer and I would end up with a stone. So it's kind of like I'm breaking the block.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so, and if I had, say, like a bamboo, but I needed a glass, I could chip this off, okay, and I'd end up with a glass, and that would allow me to complete, say, a building or a palace action, or perhaps even complete my residence. So these allow you to introduce combos into the game. The warehouse allows you to protect a resource, because normally when you draft them, they'll go into your construction yard area of your player board. The warehouse allows you to move it up into your warehouse area, and in that way they can't be taken. Because it's important to understand that this game has 2 fundamental modes that you can play with. You can play with a competitive resource mode or a passive resource mode. With a competitive resource mode, I can, if a particular quarry resource is not available, then I can take it from you. So that's kind of a take that mechanic.
Okay, yeah.
Some people don't like take that. So there's a way that if a resource is not available from the quarry, you take the next one in an ordered sequence that is in fact available. So you can choose to play competitive or passive.
That's really great, though, because sometimes you're with a group of friends that prefer competitive, and sometimes you're with, you know, maybe a family with younger kids where they're just not ready for the competitive nature yet.
That's correct. And this actually came out of some feedback that we got from some teachers that said, if, you know, little Johnny has his resource taken, he could be crying about it, he may not understand, please make sure there's no take that mechanic in the game. So we added this passive resource rule into it because we think this is going to be a a great game for educators to be teaching kids about spatial
Definitely.
relationships.
The spatial awareness aspect of it is something that I think is really going to hit the mark for teachers.
So yeah, so that's like I said, we built that in, and in fact, there's another in a sense mode that you can add to the game where instead of, I don't actually have them here with me, but instead of playing with the dice, you can also play with quarry tokens, and the way the quarry tokens are laid out are a little differently, and you can manipulate them as well. There's a bit of a push your luck mechanic there too. So you have a choice whether you want to play with the quarry dice or the quarry tokens, whether you want to play with the passive resource rules or the competitive resource rules. So it really helps the replayability of the game that you have these different modes that you can experiment with.
It keeps it refreshing each time.
That's right.
So speaking of gameplay, how long does this game take to play?
It depends, usually between 30 to 60 minutes, with sort of 45 minutes being the average. I should also mention that there's a full solo mode included in the base game. So you can play the game solo, the solo rules are included, and so the base game does support 1 to 4 players, and with an expansion, as I mentioned previously, it supports 5 to 6 players.
And you said this is a new game. Is it available now?
It will be early in the new year. We did a Kickstarter campaign for it. We have some backers to fulfill. This is part of my job when I get back to Canada, is to get those games out to folks. And then we expect to be getting it into distribution. So it will be available very soon, is our hope.
Is there anywhere online people can go to get more information if they want to get more information, back other Kickstarters that you might be doing, anything like that?
Well, folks can always follow us on Kickstarter and any of our social feeds, of course. We're at Elzra Games on Twitter and the same on Facebook. And, of course, just visit our website, elzra.com. Nice and simple, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for showing us your game. Thank you so much for coming out. Have a wonderful rest of your PAX. And we'll see you at your friendly local game store.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the opportunity.